We're going to sample a jackfruit and a jaboticaba vinegar today, and along the way, we're going to tell you a little bit about sour flower vinegar and how it came to be. Before we get started, we thought it would be fun to show you guys around our favorite beach. This is Maklavena. It's on the west side of Big Island, and to get here, you actually have to cross lava fields. You can drive in from the road, but you're still going to have to trek across. We usually park at the street and then run in, and because it's so difficult to get here, it's almost always going to be secluded. So maybe we should start with a jaboticaba. I actually haven't tasted this one. I think he added some cacao beans and something else, maybe some kind of spice.
Cacao and star anise, and now we've added a little bit of sand and maybe some nostril hair.
I don't think so, but I can smell the star anise, and we might be getting some sand in our mouth. That could be true.
Wow. Yeah, star anise. Every time you infuse a vinegar with star anise, it is very dominant.
I think it adds a little like sweet note, like a sweet tone, like a licorice flavor.
It always reminds me of pho. And actually, those star anise are from a trip to Hanoi a couple of years back that we cryovac. Jaboticaba to me is like a really nice fruity red wine vinegar. I don't know if it's the color, but it's reminiscent of a red wine vinegar, but tastes much more fruity from the actual jaboticaba, which is a Brazilian tree grape.
Speaking of jaboticaba, we went and picked the most epic 60-year-old jaboticaba tree that we've ever seen, and there were two of them hanging out behind our friends at Petals and Provisions. So they kind of like shouted out on Instagram, like, anybody wants some jaboticaba? Then, of course, knowing we would always take some fruit. Whatever's in abundance is kind of how we roll. So we don't really even decide what fruit to use for our vinegar, but our relationships, our community, and really just overabundance of whatever the island has at the time decides. So this is more of a fruit story.
Yeah, let's try the jackfruit and we can talk a little bit more about our preserving techniques.
This is one of my all-time favorite fruits. It's like catnip to me. I will sniff it out like 2 miles away and then like salivate over it. So
yeah, I would say we ended up eating jackfruit first, probably in our trips to Vietnam and Thailand, even though it grows in Hawaii everywhere.
It just smells so jackfruity. And the reason we never really ate it in Hawaii is because it's not like super easy to come by. But now that we've gotten into vinegar making, we actually do find jackfruit coming our way.
Yeah, it's great. Smells like jackfruit, and it's the essence of jackfruit without any of the sweetness. So it's all the jackfruit notes stripped down. And yeah, I would say that one of our big things is we don't get fruit at like a grocery store or even purchase it at like co-ops and things like that, because we treat our vinegar more like a preservation. So some people make jams when their fruit are falling, or they pickle,
freeze dry, dehydrate, you name it.
Exactly. Yeah. We turn it into a vinegar. And so when we've got a neighbor who's got all these tangerines or oranges having fruit fall, it makes way more sense just to use those fruit that are going to just decompose if you don't process them now in some form, than going to a store or even a farmer's market and picking up fruit that somebody would gladly purchase and eat. Or, the grocery store, so much of that fruit is refrigerated, so people are holding on to it to sell it so people can ingest it.
Or it's like old and it got picked a long time ago, has a little less nutrition left in it. So it's pretty cool to be able to like rescue fruit straight from the tree into the fermentation vat. So you're like really preserving that freshness and also like amplifying the nutrients through fermentation itself.
Absolutely. And for us, we use vinegar so much in our cooking and our just kind of healthy mindset in terms of the way we eat. Vinegar is such a health product that there's really no upper limit in ingesting it. And I definitely love jams. I even love mixing jam with the vinegar. But for us, those kinds of preservation techniques like jam, we just don't really use a lot. So it doesn't resonate as much. And I think vinegar, people forget that it's really a preservation tool beyond anything else.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's going to be like way more of a thing like moving forward into the future as there's like more awareness around vinegar in general, and just like every single fruit, a fruit with any sugar in it at all, can be converted to alcohol and then oxidized to vinegar. So there's really no limits. And I think that's like really the beauty in this business for us, is just like the sheer creative like landscape that it has to offer.
Yeah, it's more of an exploration in flavor and fruit. So each fruit will have a different personality, and there's a whole spectrum that you can experience through it. And so, yeah, it's an exploration in flavor through the fruit. So it's very nature driven. And for the longest time with our business, that's what we were telling a lot of people. Yeah, we're nature driven, and we absolutely are. But we're now, I think, relationship driven. So all the fruit that we pick, it comes from somebody, and that connection with that person is why we're picking that fruit. And so the people are way more important in the long run than just the fruit itself.
I'd say that's the best part about being a small business owner in a community where like it really brings everything full circle. Like we used to have a wood-fired sourdough pizza business on Oahu, and that was really our favorite part about it was not only him being able to like perfect his craft, but really just like that community bond through sharing something physical that you created and then being able to like nourish someone else with it, or maybe the vinegar represents a blank canvas to them too, and now they get to create with it. So it's like you're sharing the gift of creativity, health, and kind of novelty.
Totally. And when you're just creating in general, it gives you more authority in your own life in terms of your own perspective, your own ideas. And I think that's a lot of the thing that is so powerful about creating is giving yourself the opportunity to learn about yourself through the product while also getting outside the abstraction of words. And like Alex was saying, when you give somebody a bottle of vinegar, like they're tasting your essence and they're getting to ingest it into reality.
Yeah, because I feel like, if you were to get one of our vinegars, say you were given this jackfruit vinegar or you met us and bought a vinegar, like you're gonna you're gonna want to savor it. You're gonna want to treat it with love. You're gonna want to like create something nice with it, even if it's just simply putting it in your water. That it's like a sacred act of like something that you appreciate and like went out of your way to want to try and experience. So it might inspire you to even like cook something like way out of your wildest imagination that you weren't thinking of before, just because you were given a small prompt to get creative, you know? So it gets you out of your own box.
Yeah, and I think that for us, like we're striving for novelty in the form of the vinegar because we don't choose what vinegar we make. We don't know what the next flavors are going to be.
Oh, so good.
And we strive for that not for others, but because it's for ourselves. We want to live a more novel life. We want to get out of our own way, get out of our own routine, out of our own habits. And so it's not about telling people, you mean be more novel in your cooking or in your life. No, it's like we're trying to become more novel in our cooking in our life. And by making the product, it kind of actually keeps you um like committed to it because you're forced to. You're like, no, I have an obligation. I'm making this vinegar, and I have a responsibility to myself to make what I'm preaching. And by doing that, it's just one aspect of keeping you in that mindset.
And you're at the mercy of nature too. It's like when the jaboticaba are going off, like those chickens are going to start eating the jaboticaba. So when someone calls you and is like, "Hey, you want these?" Like, okay, cool. Like emergency drill, fruit rescue. Let's go get them. And like we didn't expect that fruit to come our way. So like while that's also being novel, it like keeps it full circle. With the nature component, the art component, the creativity. And I don't think we even realized that this was the direction that the business was going to go in terms of like tying together all the things that we love in life, whether it's like picking fruit, cooking, staying healthy, being in nature, or even for me, like getting to do the artwork on the labels and like having that come full circle and not being like pigeonholed to maybe the traditional restaurant that maybe we were leaning towards going towards before we kind of went on the journey of vinegar.
I agree totally. I think all those things are unexpected and part of just the un kind of uh,
The mystery, I guess, you know?
the unfolding. That's I guess what I was getting at. The
Yeah.
unfolding of something that you dive into without understanding all of the intricacies that and all the things that unfold because of that. And I think as well, like sustainability is such a hot topic, and like what does that really mean? I feel like it's like just being in equilibrium with your environment, and by only creating in terms of what is actually in your locality is a product that is in need of being saved at that moment, you kind of stay in that equilibrium rather than if you're like purchasing and picking up fruits for a
Then you're in
specific flavor.
desire,
Well, yeah, you're in desire, but
perhaps.
you're also like there is no upper limit. Like we could go and try to procure as many fruits as possible, and you could buy frozen concentrated lilikoi or other fruits that have been preserved in that way, and then it would be like infinite growth. Like could just continually produce tons of vinegar for what reason I don't
It's
know.
just not in the way of the Dow for us now. I mean, maybe in the future, like there are grocery stores being like, hey, we have way too much of this. Like we got to give you guys our surplus, and we'll be like a composting plant for the island. Like whatever is in too much abundance, like we're not going to turn it down, but we're definitely not seeking at the moment. Like we're just kind of staying in a space of letting the fruit come as it pleases.
And I think I was having this conversation at a farmer's market with another vendor, and I think that right now, at least in America, these small sustainable food businesses or just businesses in general that are more concentrated on that idea of sustainability and just making what you can at a smaller scale. I think that's more of like a symbology. It's like it's
Mm,
symbolism in terms of like
time and place.
well, and like letting people understand that maybe there's a different way to doing things in their area, and if it can spread like wildfire, where it's a more decentralized approach, where every town people are becoming makers in their own way for whatever they make. I think that's actually how you get a sustainable product. Because the reality is, we can't provide vinegar for the whole country. But I think if we did, we would be perpetuating the same problem with our centralized food
Mm,
systems as a whole. Is we don't really need anyone making anything at the scale that
well,
what we
yeah.
have right now is. I didn't even know what real vinegar was growing up because we just purchased commercial apple cider vinegar
That's why
or
we
white
all
vinegar.
only eat apple cider vinegar because it got commercialized and subsidized. That's where the money was for the apples and like so it became apple cider vinegar and that's all we ever know about and it's like a lost dying art that can be resurrected and what he's saying in locality and like food and like what it really overall represents in terms of like
The
we
spectrum
can
of where what vinegar can be, and I think
yeah and
when you,
food and culture like
yeah, no, and when you
localized.
commercialize these things and they get in these large kind of scale operations, they, in a sense, they whitewash the product where you don't even really know the true essence of what that product was, and to where it becomes less inspiring. You
Oh,
become uninspired.
it's just like we were talking about what was like clothing brands or like other people just starting to outsource their work towards like other countries or just like when you get too big and too bulk you can't actually necessarily stay true to how it originally started. Oh,
So yeah, if you guys have any thoughts on anything that we said, if you think this is a value, if this sparks any conversation worth having, let us know, because at the end of the day, we don't want to do these videos if there is no value for the audience, and we hope that people, I mean, can take something away from this, and
if you
so let us
do
know.
drop a comment below, let us know what you think